Hello everybody and welcome back to another On the Workbench session. This one's number 39, and this one is sort of a part of a Adepticon theme, because what you're going to see me doing is making some homemade oil brushers. You know how much I love these, especially the folks that have seen the Army Painter series where we're really relying on these a lot. I love these. First of all, this is a neat sort of a carrying case. It's pretty much indestructible, right? And when you open these guys up, well, you can see you have some really thin version of oil paints here. Essentially the consistency of miniature paint. That's the whole point of this. Now I want to say there is some special formulations in here that actually make it a little more matte and a little faster drying, say, than your traditional oils like you have here. Now I do think a lot of it had to do with the addition of things like white spirits. And this is actually the container that I got partially for Adepticon here. And what we're going to do is we are going to take these two items like so, and we are going to combine those in these little jars right here. And we're going to basically create what is in here over in here. Now I do have a few different sized jars. Not quite sure these 2-ounce jars arrived, and these two are. I think these might even be 4s. Yeah, these might even be 4-ounce jars or something like that. I was supposed to get 2s, some 1s and 2s. This is a 1-ounce jar, and you'll kind of recognize. Looks kind of familiar, right? Lots of the paint containers that we have. And even this, actually, I think, was it the Turbo Dork paints have this little? Yeah, here, let's just grab one of these guys. Sure enough. Yeah, see that little collar around there on the Turbo Dork paints? We just use those. We've got one of those collars here, and you can see how that works. So when it goes on, there's, yeah, that sort of locks in place there. Well, then, there. And the idea is we are going to, like I said, take those two things. Each paint is a little different, because I can tell you right now, paints like, say, burnt sienna tend to be a little bit thicker than your phthalo style paints. These also have a tendency to be more transparent and sometimes a little bit shinier. So maybe these could potentially get a little bit more of the thinner than others. And this is one of your thickest right here, of course, your titanium white. Now I have 20 different colors that I could make. These that you see right in front of you, these are the so-called core or regular type colors. Burnt umber, raw sienna, a lot of earth tones, right? Burnt sienna, raw sienna, raw umber, yellow ochre, and we've got, there's a couple more of the core. So there's a Windsor yellow deep. It's kind of a cadmium yellow right there, and there is your yellow ochre. So we're going to focus first on these type of colors, but we're also going to throw in some specialty ones too, like this right here. So this is actually a really neat one. I actually did make a homemade oil brusher out of that before, and I'll show you these. Now, some of you might remember me using some of these in previous, actually all the other videos. There's Payne's Gray in here, raw umber in here. Where's my raw umber? There we go. That's burnt umber there. There's my Payne's Gray. So basically, this in this container, and you can see it's a nail polish container here, right? We'll open this puppy up, and you can see how thin that is, right? An awful lot like what was in that oil brusher. Look, it even has its own little brush. And listen to this. I think you can hear that agitator in there. So this is what I had. This actually came in a case of 20 empty jars. It actually came with some of these funnels, which was really neat. And it even came with its own agitators. Now I'm going to show you what you can do. We all have these agitators sitting here. We just don't realize it. They're all over the place. We throw them away probably every other day. Well, I throw them away every day. But I'll show you what we can do for agitators later on. Now, the other type of paints that you've seen me use are these Wintons. It says slightly maybe tiny bit less fancy than these as far as what grade of paints you're looking at. But you can get these. This is from Amazon here, just like my original box. This is a compressed set of 5, I think. No, it's 6. Yeah, see, it's the same thing. Got these on Amazon. I'm going to put links to all of this stuff in the description, to the bottles, to the paints, to the Mona Lisa, the Speedball paint thinner. And again, it's got to be that. It's not just any old odorless paint thinner. You really want to use this. This is high quality stuff. Also, Grumbacher and a few other companies make some. So yeah, this is the other thing too. Is see how nasty that gets up there? Because you use these so often, it gets kind of, anytime you've got a little screw cap thing, and you also have to worry about poking a hole in these metal tubes. Now, the plus side of metal tubes is that we've got paint that we've used here for like 30 years, and it hasn't degraded at all. What we were going to do is, again, try and put this in these nice self-sealing jars here. Okay, and we're going to take you through all the different stuff that you need. Right here, actually, here's one of those 4-ounce jars. This is just the paint thinner. That's the odorless paint thinner in there. And then I've also checked this out. I even made myself some labels. Nothing fancy there. All that is, we're just looking at some Avery labels. That's all it is. No problem. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get some of these things off to the side here and hopefully not make a big old mess. I'm going to have to sort of, see just how to get this into here, because this is a much smaller entrance than these guys were over here. So we'll see just how we want to get this in a reasonable way without making too much of a mess and without wasting too much paint. So we'll do that next. We're going to get this started with some titanium white here. Now you can see I've got a really beat up brush, and this is just the lid of a blister pack right here. So I may have to find some more of these. I've got other just generic lids here from, oh gosh, what would we say? Just some generic things like butter containers. And I've even got some of these guys. Now, check this out right here. My sister gave me these. I think they're actually for eggs or something like that, because they certainly look egg-shaped. So we'll try messing around with this too, as long as it doesn't create too many reflections. So it's kind of all hands on deck here, because pretty much whatever you use is going to be kind of, I don't want to say destroyed, but it's going to get kind of messy. So we've got a little clear plastic thing here. Let's throw out some of our titanium white here. Now, this is it's only a 1-ounce container. Now, I don't see how all that's supposed to fit in here, but what we're going to do is try starting with about that much. Okay, and then we're going to get some liquid in there. Look how thick this is. I mean, it looks more like the heavy gloss gel, doesn't it? So we've got our thinner in here. And now we are going to start to thin this down. This is what I would do just if I was doing just a painting exercise. Right, one of my usual painting videos, I'd be making a much smaller amount of this, obviously. But you can see how that starts to break it down. You have to really scrub your brush in there, and that's why you're going to have to need a few of these on hand. Now, if I had more rubbing alcohol, obviously we're in a wee bit of a shortage of that right now. Can't find it anywhere, even the 70%. This process cleaning this would be a wee bit easier. Now look at how this breaks down. You start to reach a certain point here. It doesn't have to be perfectly even. But you can see how that starts to spread out a little bit more. Now, obviously, we won't do all 20 of these on camera. I don't think you need to see this process 20 times. But what I want to really focus on are some of those different colors. The earth tones I told you about, and then some of those more specialty, like the phthalo stuff and the cadmiums, because each one is a little bit different. And I want you to see that. And I think this is a good way for you to see the differences in oil. But look at that. Look at how silky smooth that's starting to get, right? It's not all one big old blob. Another thing to consider, the more of the white spirits that we put in there, the shorter the drying time. And you say, well, what's up with that? Well, you're replacing basically the linseed oil with the thinner, which is going to dry. So yeah, that bottle over there, you don't want to be leaving. It's kind of like, well, rubbing alcohol. The thinner's going to dry, or the white spirits is going to evaporate more quickly. Look at this. See, the more of this we add, the more it becomes like regular miniature paint. We're getting there. We're starting to get there. I don't have any ratios for you. It's very much a feel. Because, I mean, I may want this actually a little bit thicker. It's almost easier if this stuff is thicker, and then you just add a little bit more of your paint thinner after. Look at that. Look at how that just moves around. Is that not like regular miniature paint? It is transformed from what looked like peanut butter to something so much thinner. Here we go. Look at this. Look at that. That is nice and thin. Now, I may need a bunch more of this. I may need to make another amount. It's all experimental. I have no idea. I haven't done this before. Not with these little jars. I did it with those other containers that you saw. All right, here's an empty jar. Now, there's a couple of ways we could try and do this. To me, this just seems to be the quickest way. My guess is I'm going to have to mix a whole bunch more. Just a ton more. And I just shove this down over here. Now, I like to use the funnels, but when I did that, again, I had a lot more rubbing alcohol on hand, for one thing. Here, I'm just gonna. This is another reason why I like this particular. I wish I had more of these blister packs like this. So we're gonna mix that up there. Just gonna let this hopefully flow in there. There we go. It's really more of the liquid stuff that's kind of hasn't necessarily been mixed all the way. I'll show you those agitators too. Don't forget that. I can start to see there's an actual like level. I can actually see an amount. And good, there is no overflow. So now I'm going to try and pick up what's left here. So yeah, I could make a whole bunch more of this. I could have done almost 3 times as much easily, and that would have been pretty good. Now I am going to just maintain some cleaning there as we go along with this. So I'm just going to, this is probably my last brushful I can pull out of here. So let's do one more. But I think, yeah, you can see that's a decent amount there. I think one more gives us a pretty good starting level. I mean, we got plenty in here. That barely put a dent in it. Now, I actually, of these core colors, I had gotten, oh my gosh, probably, I want to say 2 or 3 of each at least. And because I needed to make a whole bunch of these oil brushers. Well, I know I keep calling them that. They're really not oil brushers. You want oil brushers, MIG ammo. I love those. Like I said, this is not to replace those. It's just from a practical standpoint. This is kind of what I needed to do. For the classes, that many oil brushers, and I don't know if there would have been that many of one type of oil brusher to be had, because I would have needed 10 of each, plus me. So, I mean, obviously I have those already, but I think you can see the logistics were not necessarily in my favor. But we'll keep thinning this down. Now, I think we'll have ourselves a nice little oil brusher there. Now, we'll just keep going with this. You can see how we're really jam that brush down in there, really vigorously doing this. I think, I don't know if there was some other type of brush that I might have used when I first made those. Like I said, I only made those first couple here, just one last little squig there, and finish this up here. I would suggest doing this maybe sooner rather than later with your paints. So you get a new thing of paint, maybe just kind of do this right away when the paint is at its freshest, because I think that'll be better. Boy, yeah. This should fill this, I don't want to say halfway, but a third of the way at least. Like I said, this is maybe not the fastest way of doing it, but it's going to have the least amount of spatter and stuff being shot all over the place. I will say too, what's going to happen, and it can happen with your oil brushers too, but really nowhere near like this. You're going to have to shake these again. When they sit for a while, you're gonna notice for sure a separation, because those ones that I made myself, I had to shake those, and I would suggest that every so often. I mean, if you're not going to use them for whatever reason, for 3 months, 4 months, whatever, maybe give them a shake. There's other paints too that sort of require a similar treatment, I would say. So yeah, we're getting about a third full here on our container, with each little brush full here. So I think the next one I'm going to do is actually one of the earth tones, either the burnt umber, raw sienna, one of those. And you'll get to see what that is like. It's more like the titanium white. It's very thick. All right, I just want to make sure here. Ah, that's what I need. There we go. And let's try and do a little bit of a pour. But we all got blister packs. Almost every single blister pack has a sort of a lid like this. And I tend to save these anyway because I use them as little palettes sometimes. You've seen me use them for when I'm doing things like blood effects, stuff that my wet palette, I can't put that stuff on there. The snow effects, you've seen me do that there. So just save those things. You'll be surprised at how handy that can be. All right. Now we have a little bit of overflow there. Just going to keep my paper towel handy here. So you can see oils, once you thin them down like this, they're going to want to spatter. So clothes, think about that. Your table, whatever it is, if it's valuable, you're going to want to protect it. So we got a jar that's around half full here now. So it barely put a dent in our titanium white. I mean, look at that. You can see there's a little bit of indentation there on the bottom. I could probably fill 5 of these, maybe. That was my math. Was I was hoping to get 5 containers this full. and then do it. I had two things of the titanium white, and the idea was to have, well, hopefully something that would last them at least the entire class, and maybe a little bit afterwards too. All right. Now I'm going to show you this, because remember we talked about agitators, right? We have agitators. See that? That is that. We've got tons of these things. And I don't use these. You know that. You know I snip these things off. Like so. Now let's put this over here. I'm not going to knock it over. So we'll just snip that there. Snip that over there. And I can probably get, there's one, maybe get four, yeah, about four agitators. Those have to at least be the weight of one of these balls here. I've used these for agitators for years. Okay, and the thing is, it's got to fit in there. Okay, so it fits. In you go. Now I'm just going to, again, clean around the edge here before we seal this puppy up. You can hear that sort of, that collar click into place. Hear that? That's our nifty little agitator in there. Yeah. Looks nice and white. Now, I don't know if I'm going to have to poke a hole in it. I don't think so. Look at that. There you go, baby. Uh-huh. That looks just like miniature paint right there. So we just did that. Now I'm going to... Oh. Nope, I'm not going to do my labels. Yeah, I'm really tempted, but somehow I think I can tell what color this is. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm guessing that it's white. So there's our first container. Really happy about that. So let's just put him off to the side where he doesn't get messed up. But look at this. We've got, I think this is a Reaper figure here. Something like that. It's a Reaper figure. I'm going to cut that sprue off there. We'll use that. I think this is another part of that Games Workshop figure here. The Mahood King. Look at that. Couple agitators there. I think we've got ourselves a Dark Sword figure, maybe. Yeah, that's a Dark Sword, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that one, I had to saw that one off of there. But here's another Reaper figure. So we'll just do that. We'll do that. And I'm sure I can get at least a couple of agitators out of this. So we'll put this in our little agitator container there. I did no time at all. I probably got over a dozen in there. And we have these things. They're everywhere. You almost can't avoid those things. So I am now going to use that. So we put our white aside. Let's just grab this one right here. So burnt umber. Look at that. And we know we got to put a decent amount out there, so let's just go with that. Yeah, I realized what that kind of looks like. It looks like a different kind of peanut butter. Now we're gonna get ourselves let's just clean out that brush as good as I can, and we are gonna do something like this. Now this, I got a few of these around. I want to make sure I don't shoot it over the top there. but you can see how the liquid wants to kind of it wants to spatter. That is something that acrylics do it too. It's not like they don't spatter at all. It's just the oils, they have that higher capillary action, right? Which it makes it great for getting things down into crevices, but also means it's more prone to things like spattering. I mean, it's literally like I'm mixing a. Feel like I'm mixing some egg batter here or something like that. Yeah, this is kind of nice actually having this deeper trough like this. Look at that. Heck, if I had an old, what is it, ice maker, right, or a ice tray, that might not be horrible either. Look at that. So I'm gonna, yeah, I'm kind of glad I remember these guys. Well, the first thing I wanted to show you is what if you don't have some of these? I just, for whatever reason, happen to have some of these guys. Look at that. Okay. Yeah. That's relatively thin. I want it to be a little bit thinner than that. And this is why every paint is different. Every paint's different. I'm willing to bet that stuff like the phthalo colors, the alizarin crimson, those I'm going to need less of the white spirits, and stuff like this, the cadmium colors, I'm just thinking I'm going to need more. And yes, it's not going to be thrilling to see me mixing different colors, kind of doing the same process again and again, but it's more to show you this is like the first time you might really just see the properties of the paint all by themselves, not in the context of us painting things. So see that? Boy, I want a little bit more. I didn't think I'd be adding more, but and this all, if you want thicker oil brushes, that is fine. I think we've all had, well, geez, if the Vallejo fluorescence can still come out of those those containers, as thick as that stuff is way thicker than what I'm doing here with just the oils. So see, that's relatively thick there. Look at that, it's kind of sitting on top of the container. I'm kind of surprised. Now, I know some people say, well, why don't you just jam some of that down in the container, throw the liquid in there and shake it? I think that might work in the bigger jars. Well, like these, potentially. The thing is, you're just going to need a whole bunch more of everything. You're going to need more of the white spirits, you're going to need more paint, all of which, well, there's a certain cost involved there. Now, for you guys, I think the labels on the colors will be more helpful. For me, these are colors that I've used since, well, forever. You know what? I am going to, for the heck of it, I'm just going to put some more of that in there. I'm putting more in there. Now, this is going to be a little bit thinner than what's in there, but once it's all mixed, and I can always just take that extra container there of my white spirits and shoot a little bit more. Yeah, that flows way better. That one last little bit of hit really made the difference. And you can see even now there's a little bit of the, well, I don't want to say brown spatter, but there kind of is. But this raw umber here, you can see it's a fantastic color for horses, great for leather. It's a nice, rich brown. You mix this with Payne's gray, and you're going to get yourself some really nice, I don't want to say a black, but you're going to get yourself a real nice dark color. So I'm going to move that around. You can see how much we've got in the container now. And there's still a decent amount sitting in here. And heck, I could even throw a little bit more of the white spirits in this and sort of scoop the last of it off the edges too. Now, the reason I wanted to get this done anyways is because, well, we want to do all those oil painting videos, and I thought, because it's really hard to get those paint tubes underneath the camera just for you guys to see them. When I say, okay, I'm using this color or that color or whatever in the photos, it's really tough, but it is much easier to get these jars in the scene. So that was my rationale on that. So I really do like these containers. See if I can find these on Amazon for or something similar. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to clean off my edges again here real quick. Yeah, let me grab another towel here. Want to make sure that I don't get too much on the outside plastic surface because I want to get my labels on there, and if there's all kinds of oil all over it. Now this is, you can see I got to worry about that spattering over the edge there. That worked out pretty well. Gonna get ourselves a cap here. You can hear that snap into place. And this is even without an agitator. Even without an agitator, look at that. And it comes out just like miniature paint. Boom. I approve of that. So what we are going to do now, we're going to move on, I think, we're going to try these two next here. Okay, so stuff like this, the phthalo color, well, you can't see it, there you go. Some of these phthalo colors like that. And we'll check those out next. We've got our phthalo green here, and we're going to squeeze this out right here. And it's interesting. Look at how dark that is. We're going to get a decent amount out there. All right. Yeah, maybe a little more. So even that it's relatively thick, but I'm going to just take the brush here real quick. Just let me get my cap on this thing. 1 second here. Now, you can see how, look at that. See how intense that is, but you can see how transparent it is. It's also very shiny. It's just much more, just kind of on its own, more shiny. And we go with our sauce there. Time to start mixing this up. And sometimes this is a little bit like mixing plaster. You put a little bit of plaster in, you say, it's too dry. You put a little more water in, you go, it's too wet. And you put a little more plaster in, and sometimes you can drive yourself a little bit nuts. Maybe you just get it where it's good enough. Get it to where it flows out of the jar. That is good enough. Now, there we go. We're getting there. I really like this. This is actually kind of easier to use, I want to say, than the... Now, obviously, using the lids of blister packs is, well, it's sort of free. It's free-ish. It's free in that you didn't have to specifically buy a thing like this, but you had to buy the miniature first. So it's one or the other. Either way, you'll have to pay something. But I'm excited about having these. Just the fact that I can squeeze oil paints out onto my palette or whatever, just like regular miniature paints. I'm kind of excited about that. Again, as much as I love my tubes of paint, there's still, well, I mean, you saw how thick that was. Look at this in comparison to that. Look at how silky smooth it is. It saves me time. Yes, there's a little bit of upfront work. Okay. Obviously there is. But you don't have to do 20 colors at once. I mean, that was all I was going to do for the oil painting class was 8 per person. I mean, for me, I just want to have all the jars there in case we're doing something that's obviously more of a fantasy type piece, and those sometimes need more than just the earth tones. See, I think I can go a little bit more with that. This is surprising. I've actually had to put more of this than I thought. It's not quite as much as some of the other colors, but more than I thought, which is interesting. Look at that nice, deep, rich green. So I guess if you were in the old GW parlance, you're really looking at a, what is it, a Dark Angels green? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much a Dark Angels green. Okay, that's going to be too much. Now again, to get that to flow in there, I might have to thin it down a little bit more. It's kind of, you can see it's sort of sitting here on the top. Now obviously I can jam that down in there. But I'm going to say no, I'm going to just give it another shot. Remember when we did the raw umber, no, burnt umber, all it took was, it kind of tilted. One little application and all of a sudden it just sort of dropped right in there. So that is what I'm looking for. There. Because I'm looking at the jar over there and that just hasn't fallen out. Now, of course, I got pins like that I can use, which of course is off camera in a very inconvenient way. There's another thing that we can use. This is gonna, there we go. So these are little, almost like Q-tips. Yeah, there we go. There was a big old air bubble there. I think once the air bubble was burst, that sort of changed things around. So let's start to get our paint down in here. Like I said, I realize this is not the most fascinating thing ever. And that's interesting. Boy, I really thought that was going to have to be that much thinner, but yeah, that just doesn't want to go down in there. Interesting. And it's thin, too. It's pretty thin, but we're just going to have to go more thin. Okay. I'm just going to add some more until it starts to... This is what I mean. I told you that there was going to be a lot of back and forth here. I also think I put a little bit more paint out here, too. And why did I do that? Well, I learned from the first one where I didn't put very much paint out. I said, I can put more out there than that. Okay, that's starting to, yeah, that's just about, it almost started to fall off the end of the brush when I held it up there. So I suppose that is what would you say, that's a good indicator of whether or not it's going to get in the jar easy or not. Okay, I think, I think we've got some flow now. I think that'll actually start to descend down into the container, at least with a little encouragement. Like I said, if this was a larger container, the flow would certainly be easier. Now, there's something else. Oh, what the heck. It's worth a shot. I'm going to give this a shot just to see what happens. I've got some pipettes here. Now, my guess is this is nowhere near thin enough to actually be... well, maybe I stand corrected. Nah. Nope, that's not I don't like that. So all I did was I just kind of wasted my paint in there. Now, unless we widen that aperture. So I'm just going to get this over the garbage here real quick. So you can see I cut that off and widened it. Yeah, no, that's, I would say that's a failed experiment. Like I said, I was not going to originally film this, and then I thought, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe there could be some value in it. And as I fool around with this more and more, I'm realizing, yeah, there was a point to this. Boy, oh boy, that just does not want to go down in there. And I have no idea why. You saw the first two times it worked. It could just be, I don't know, maybe it's this particular color even. But there's like an air bubble inside that wants to keep pushing the paint back out again. I think now we've got, there we go. I guess I really just had to go thin with that, my goodness. So much for theories. So much for theories. I think, what's the other color that I want to try? Well, let's try, depending how, yeah, okay, I think I got time. I'm going to try one of the more unusual colors. This is not one of the core, but it's one of these really unusual kind of a lavender type colors. And now I'm curious now after this. After seeing it, look at how, okay. So just note to self, put a whole bunch more of that stuff in there than you think you need to get it to flow. Because that's certainly flowing a whole lot easier now than it was. I was just resisting going down in there. This is so much easier now. So, like I said, I've made a fool of myself many times over the course of my life. So looking stupid on camera, well, not the first time I've ever made myself look stupid on camera, anyways. Here, let me try these guys. I'm gonna try one of this to see how that, does it sponge up the paint a little bit better? More efficiently than the brush? No, it's kind of harder than the brush, so yeah. Also goes in the garbage. As I throw that in there, I keep thinking of, oh, the old academy days. Some of the things that we used to do regarding little trash cans where people would throw their rags. We would actually take fishing line and hook that up to their little trash cans, these short little trash cans, and we'd tie the other end to our shoe. And, well, over the course of 10, 15, 20 minutes, we would slowly move that container further and further away from their reach. And it was so gradual, they just didn't quite realize that container went from 1 foot away to 2.5 feet away to almost 3 feet away. And then when you were waiting for that last little toss of the paint rag, then you'd really yank on that little fishing line, which was pretty much invisible because it ran through a whole bunch of paint easels. And they would be sitting there with a rag on the floor and no garbage can. So there you go. Fun in art school. Okay, I'm going to throw an agitator in there now. If I can locate my agitators real quick here. There we go. Any old one will do. I'm going to snip this one. I don't know if that's going to fit. Now it's going to fit. In goes an agitator. You could put a second one in there too if you really feel the need for it. I am going to wipe around the edges of this because, boy, there was a lot of the phthalo green that got around the edge of this. See how much got around the edge there? All right, we have a cap waiting for us. There we are. A little bit of a shake. You can hear that agitator going. And out comes miniature paint. Look at that, just like regular miniature paint. All right, let's play with one more here. Just humor me if you don't mind. So one more jar there. Now with the oils, you can see it gets on your hand. You're gonna need a lot of chamois sponges or rags or whatever, because you can see that's on my fingers there. Look at that. That's still on there. So if I had more time or whatever, I would obviously wash my hands or whatever in between these, but we don't have that sort of time here. But what we want to play with is one of these guys here. One of these two. I'm going to play with this ultramarine violet here. So you can see I've already used a little bit of it. And you can see really how shiny that is. It's a very intense color. I like it. I think it's really neat. I'm also going to use a different brush here. So I just got another. Again, you can see this is one that we use for basing. It's all beat up. But what we're going to do is make sure we get a fair amount of our white spirits in there. And I think with each one of these, it's going to go a little bit faster, just as we learn some lessons. Here, let me center this a bit for you. Now, I'm seeing here, just kind of based on, I put liquid in here based on what happened with the phthalo green, and you can see that's pretty swishy right now. This is also a much older color. This thing has got to be at least a year and a half, maybe, it could be 2 years old. And you see how I don't want to say it's like cottage cheese, but this is a little bit rougher here. The other paints, since they were brand new, I mean, I got them only less than a month ago. Those definitely more smooth. So I noticed that right away. Hey, at least I was right on one thing. Now, yeah, we still need more. Because we don't want to have the same thing happen with the phthalo green on this guy here. We want this to flow a little bit better. In some ways, this is actually acting like a kind of convenient little bit of a measuring cup here. Well, if the disposable measuring cups, I mean, plastic measuring cup, quarter cup, third of a cup, right? I mean, sacrificing those, I don't think to your oil painting project wouldn't be too hideous. Now, you would definitely want more cleaning stuff around, and the white spirits here, it's not the cheapest stuff in the world. There's reason we don't want to be using cheap stuff. So you can see this around the edge there, just how liquid this paint can get. We're still mixing here, still mixing. That's going to be a nice. Now it's finally starting to get smooth. It took me longer. I can still see it's a little bit dark. I'm going to add just another touch of my white spirits here. Thin as it might seem. So this is going to, I think this is going to fill up half of a container. I could be wrong. Heck, I'm just hoping that it goes through the container. All right. Again, trying to get this all strip. I can see a difference. I can see some darker purple there where it hasn't sufficiently mixed. You can't really see it on camera. It just looks like one big dark mass, but I can see some swirls of darker purple in there. And that tells me I've got to keep mixing here. Wow, that is fascinating. I'm bumping up the light a little bit to see. I can almost see it. It's just a subtle little thing here. All right, here goes nothing. I think we've got some. Well, yeah, it's. I can see it starting to run down the side a little bit. I think we got some decent flow. But this is a nifty color that I like a lot. Oh, you know how much I like putting purples into things? Now this is also a more expensive color. I'll tell you right now, this ultramarine violet might be the most expensive color that I have. This is not going to be like, for those of you that only have bought miniature paint, and basically a jar, a 17 ounce or 17 milliliter jar is $4, and the next 17 milliliter jar is also $4. Not so with these. So titanium white is not necessarily a super expensive color. Raw sienna, yellow ochre, burnt umber, those earth tones, those will be your most economical prices. As soon as you get into stuff like cadmiums, and yes, it's cadmium. That's not just a decorative name like GW gives Screaming Skull this, whatever. Cadmium is cadmium. There's cadmium in there. Phthalo blue has phthalocyanide blue. Same with phthalo green, which is why I say in every class or whatever, okay, whoever is in here that licks brushes, you want to maybe stop that habit. Because there's cadmium, cobalt blue, that's cobalt. That is not it's not just some fun little name that somebody made up. It's called cobalt blue because there's cobalt in there. And unless you want to be a glowfish or something like that, I would suggest you maybe not consume too much of that. This one right here, probably, this color might have cost me as much as 3 raw siennas. There's this is not the most expensive color. These jars here, the earth tones, maybe you could get those, and I got them on Dick Blick, potentially $4 a tube for the cheapest stuff, maybe $4.50 a tube. There are some tubes, exact same set, 37 milliliters, $27, $32. That's the discounted price. Oh yeah, and this ultramarine violet was probably about a $12, $13 to maybe $14. And this was not the most expensive tube of paint. So that is another thing to realize, that you're not just going to get your 20 paint colors. A couple of your paint colors could cost more than the rest of them combined. So just think about that. Look at that. We got half a jar in there. Check it out. Almost 2/3 of a jar. Nice. So we know now one of these about 2/3 of a jar. And it's a jar, not a door. Yes, I went there because that's what I do. So there's my agitator. This paint in particular needs the agitator. I found that out somewhat the hard way. All right, we're going to clean this off here as best as we can. Agitator in place. Come on, there we go. And you go. Another little wipe down there. And we have liftoff. Hear that agitator bouncing around in there. What do we have? What have we got? Oh, look at that. And that look like miniature paint? Well, it does to me, and that's the story that I'm going to go with. So what we're going to do is we're going to try a couple of those cadmium colors, the yellow, the red, and maybe just one of them. I don't want this to take forever here. You don't need to see me mixing a million jars of paint, but it's a good discussion to have. So, look at that. Nice little a jar of oil paint. I'm happy. I don't know if you're as happy as I am, but you should be. So we're going to do, here, one of these cadmium colors. Well, maybe we'll play with this one right here. So we'll be right back with that in just a second. So here's one of the oldest paints that I've got. This is cadmium yellow, pale. I want you to see you can see the difference. Yeah, this one has a little bit more of an orange look to it. That's basically cadmium yellow, deep. All the cadmiums have this. There's pale, medium, deep. And that's basically, they're the same intensity. So all the cadmiums, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, they're really intense because it's got cadmium in there. That's one of the reasons why it does. So here we're going to just, wow, look at that. Oh my goodness. Wow. You have no idea how hard I'm pressing on that because that is some really old paint. Talking about your peanut butter texture. Holy smokes. All right. Now this one would have been a whole lot easier. Oh, and just real quick here, we talked about the ultramarine violet and how expensive that one was. I think this one was even more. This quinacridone magenta. This was a color that we used to, let's just say it was fought over like toilet paper at the academy. I am not kidding you. There was even a commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's terra rosa. So this purple matter, also another one. So those are the specialty colors, sort of like the cadmium green pale. But first, in we go with a whole bunch of that. And again, we'll find me a brush here that's seen some use. No, just too much of the yellow is going to come out of that. All right. Move this where you can see it. There. So your cadmium colors, and look at this. Even though this is old, yeah, it was kind of rock solid, but the cadmium in there, well, it's still got a little bit of the cottage cheese type of effect going, but nowhere near as much as the other color that was older. It's the nature of each one of these colors. Now, it happens with miniature paint too, don't get me wrong. There's going to be variations in thickness and transparency and coverage and all that. Oil paint, it's magnified a lot, as in a lot. I talk about it all the time in each of the videos, but I don't know if they show it as starkly as this. This is actually, yeah, what is it? The goal is to make these oil brushers and get the stuff in a jar. Believe it or not, this is more a stealthy way to get you guys to be looking at just the consistency of this paint and just to talk about this stuff. Literally, this could have been a 15-minute video just to show you how to get this junk in the jars. But that really, as important as that was, a conversation about these oil paints is more important. So if you've fast forwarded through this, like there's the great temptation to do, well, you've unfortunately missed out on a lot of this discussion. Well, description, maybe less of a discussion, because I don't think you want to hear me answering myself. That's probably an indication of, well, something that might be just a miss. So I'm gonna have to hit this again with another round. But I'm pleased with this. I'm I'm liking the results that I'm getting with this. And with each jar that I squeeze out onto the palette there, that's the result, that's the consistency that I want to see. I'm just going to grab myself another container here. 1 second. Because I've got so much of the oils out now. All right, so we filled this. I don't know if that's a 4-ounce. Still think it's more like a 2-ounce container. But we filled that up, and we've been able to do. This is our 5th color, and we're basically halfway through. So I can do 10. If you're talking about, okay, measurement-wise, I don't know. I suppose tomorrow I could maybe just fill one of these up with water and dump it into like a 1/3 cup container. My guess is that this is a 1/4 cup. Even this is more like, what would you say, an 1/8 of a cup. And, I realize that some folks are waiting to hear the milliliters count, but I can't really give you that necessarily. So we're getting here with our thin down, but I'm going to have to do this one more time still. But that is the cadmium yellow that I know and love. Yep, going to have to do another round. Learned my lesson with the phthalo green, I'm telling you that. That's fool me once, you ain't going to fool me twice. Because you saw how easy the purple went into the container. Nowhere near the struggle, the death struggle that the phthalo green was. So yeah, we've got ourselves probably almost 3/4 of a container now with this last bit that I added here. Nice. Liking that a lot. Yeah, very happy. Now, will I be happy that it goes in the container? That's the next thing we are about to find out, because I think we've got that mixed pretty well. And our verdict is going to be... Well, the other thing I'm doing too is just putting the brush deeper in there. Yes, I'm going to get more of it along the handle or the ferrule, but I'm not having that problem with the air bubble. Not having that same issue. Okay, yeah, I really can't wait for you guys to see these in action now. I think it's going to be really fun. Now, if these were just for me, I didn't have to worry about a class of 10 people or whatever, 8 people, I would have gone with the bigger jars. The one that you see me using for the white spirits, that's the size jar I would have chosen for myself because, well, why would I want to be running around with tubes of paint? Does me no good. Now, of course, those tubes of paint were supposed to be entirely used in the quest for getting this stuff ready for the Adepticon classes. So, if you're wondering why I'm using these tiny little containers instead, well, they were meant for the classes. Now I'm starting to get a little bit of resistance here, so I'm going to try and clear some of that away from the lid. It's going down into there reasonably. I just got to put a little less on the brush. And make sure there's not as much around the collar of this here. I also don't want to stick the bottom of the jar down into the paint. That's not going to be helpful either. So I don't know if you can hear, there's like a little bit of a popping sound. That's that air bubble that's building up there. So what I'll do is every so often I just kind of push the paint down. So what I'm going to do is, after this one gets full, I'll try on one more color. We won't show the whole process. I mean, you don't need to see me shoving all the stuff down in the container again. But in the last segment of this, before we throw our labels on there and fun stuff like that, and of course, you don't have to make labels. You can literally just take a piece of tape and throw that on there. And if you need to say what color it is or whatever, a piece of tape will be just fine. For you, a handwritten label is not going to show up very well on a video. So I made them printed specifically for that so they would show up better in videos. Now look at this. As much as I've mixed that, you can see there's still some really thick paint there. That tells me that I might even throw 2 agitators in here. Now, like I said, I would not be adverse to throwing multiple agitators in each jar. I would be okay with that, especially since I've got a bazillion sprues around here that are basically just getting thrown away every single day. Why not make those sprues work for you? See, look at that. That's a big old chunk of paint. As much as I was mixing that, look at that. It's a big old chunk of paint right there. And I think that's because it is older. So that's just food for thought. I mean, it's not like the paint is bad or anything like that. I just would say, now, of course, you're probably not going to be waiting 2 years or this paint right here is probably, gosh, if it's got to be over 3 years old now. Potentially might be closer to 4 years old than 3 years old. All right, there's your cadmium yellow in the jar. I'm going to do a quick little clean here of the edge. And we're going to throw in an agitator too. The precious paper pot, the precious, who would have thought? The ring of, well, involves a different kind of ring, I guess. We got a good, almost 3/4 full there. So I'm going to throw in 1, 2 agitators. Oh, what the heck, I'm going crazy. I'm going to throw a third one in there. Got to be careful with this because I don't want it to be spattering all over the place. These are designed, and they're made to fit tight. All right, so there we go. And now, let's see what happens. Give it a good shake. Oh, you can hear those agitators bashing around in there. And voila, we have cadmium yellow pale. How's that? All right, we talked about playing around with this green right here. Let's do that. Which one is? Let's go with. We'll go with that one. I'm gonna go with that one because it's pretty much centered. So you can see we haven't used too much of this, but check this green. Look at that. So again, here. I'm going to throw a little more in there. Remember the first one where I got barely halfway through the jet? It took me, I don't know how many shots of the white there. Not so much of a problem this time around. So we kind of figured that out. Now, I think there's another thing too is, okay, I can use this brush here because it's close enough to that yellow that if there's a little bit of the cadmium yellow that gets in there, whatever. I mean, look at it. See, there's a little bit that'll get in there, but not a tragedy. However, I'm really going to fill that up. Look at how bright that is. Look at how insanely bright that is because it's cadmium. Now, really, what this is just some cadmium yellow mixed with some probably maybe a cobalt blue, maybe even a phthalo blue. But look at that. Wow. It's interesting. Again, the cottage cheese effect there. I didn't really expect that so much. Not from this one. It's not terribly old either. Yeah, I probably could have, I guess, pushed a little less of my thinner in there, my white spirits, but this is going to take a little bit of mixing, so I think this is helpful for you to see this. I try to give you a good taste of what the different paints are like. There. Wow, this one's gonna take some mixing. I'm surprised. Very surprised. Alright, in we go again. So, like I said, look at the viscosity of that versus water. Water, sometimes, you know how it'll sit on the edge of a glass or whatever, edge of a sink or something like that, and not fall over the edge? Well, anything with oils, or especially something that's been thinned down, well, that's not going to be the case. So we're finally starting to get rid of that texture, but it's still pretty thick. Yeah, it's still pretty thick there. All right, so what we're going to do, going to give it another hit of this. And I'm even going to see if I can't grab another one of these guys. Bear with me here. Just push a little bit of this back in there. There we go. So that's pretty thick. Now, hey, okay, I feel a little bit validated here because this is taking even more of the white spirits than stuff like the phthalo color did. I mean, yes, that didn't want to go down into the container there, but that was also, I think, the first color we did in one of these little things like this. So, yeah, look at how thick that is. That's after all that white spirits in there. Interesting. So I'm just intrigued. It's the little things. Well, I think now we're all going to be intrigued by a lot of things that are maybe more insignificant than we expected to be intrigued by. Yeah, I'm happy about this. I can be all right with that. So still going to have to thin it down some more. Well, again, you don't need to see me keep thinning this down endlessly and shove it in another paint container. You've seen that before. I think you got a pretty good idea how all that works. So what I'm going to do is just finish doing that. And the next thing we'll do is we are going to see what some of these, let's put it right side up here, what some of these guys look like. And we'll be right back with our labels. So just for the heck of it, I put the first label on here. That's a little bit bigger. I thought I had it measured right. At least the text doesn't get covered up. Obviously, we've got pretty big font on that. But, I mean, hey, they would work on this size jar real easy for sure. So it's just fine. We've got our cadmium yellow pale over here. And we'll just, there we go. It's cadmium yellow pale. Let's just see if we can't get this thing off of here. Labels on bottles can be tricky, I'll tell you that for sure. It's never been easy. I mean, you're putting the typical square peg on a round hole. Get that where you can see it there. Key thing is, though, I want to start as close to the center of this as I can. We'll work our way around here. And then back this way. So it's just an Avery label. Again, these were, 2 inches by some. I was really thinking more of these larger jars when I was actually getting them. Let's look at that. See, it fits all the way around. It's just, I don't know, we're having fun here. Let's see if I can find a yellow ochre here. Oh, look at that. There's our yellow ochre. I know this is not terribly earth-shattering. Watch me put labels on things, but I'll never forget years ago when the secret weapon, whatchamacallit, the weathering paints came out, and there was just a unbelievable thing of the labels didn't show up, and then they showed up, and they were literally putting labels desperately on jars. So here, look at that. So these were the first jars of the secret weapon. Still got the tape on there after all this time. And then I distinctly remember they had to actually attach temporary labels like this to all of their jars. So I've seen it happen before. And of course, we've got our legendary. This is the metal medium here that was sent to me by Creaturecaster when they were still working on that. So let's find another one here. I think this is a Payne's Gray. And oh, look, I've got a Payne's Gray label right over here. Now, so far, I've only had one label actually go straight. The other two have gone a little bit askew. Let's see if we can't make this straight this time. Sorry about that. Now, fortunately here, the plastic is not super, I don't want to say absorbent, but I can actually move the label a little bit. That's a little better. A little bit better. So, hey, I mean, that's not too shabby. Let's see if I can't find myself a French ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue. There it is. I'm just having fun, guys. I like I said, this was not super high brain power on this one. I thought maybe it could be an interesting little refresher from all of the painting stuff that's been coming out hot and here, hot and fast, whatever, fast and furious, however the heck you pronounce that. It's late. It's already like 5:30 here as I film this, and I just want to have something fun to go to sleep to. Yeah, I'm gonna grab my titanium white where it all began, where it all started. Boom, here we go. A white label and a jar of white paint. Who would have thought we needed that? That's my story. I'll stay with that. So I think that's reasonably well centered. But as I put these last few labels on here, support is always appreciated, no matter what happens in the coming days, weeks, whatever. I'm going to try and keep lots of fun content coming your way. Useful content too, because, well, that's sort of important to me. So here's my burnt umber here. And I'm pretty sure that's what goes on there. I'm just going to do a double check. Burnt umber, yeah. Now that I have these done, it means I can start to use these. And all of those, well, right here. So you'll be seeing me using these on this new army painting series. We've gotten through to the basing part, but now we're going to do the color test figures. I'm going to work on actually 2 figures at once because, well, that is the whole point of oils. Ooh, that was a nice label right there. Like I said, I'm going to try and do maybe another couple of dark sword figures also in conjunction with maybe even 3 at a time. I want to show you what the oils are good for. Just doing them on one isolated figure. Now, if it's a larger figure, that's different because that's going to be a multi-part episode anyway. But what I really want to do is somehow, aside from just the army painting series, show you where the value is in using oils. So thanks again, everybody. I'll catch you on the next episode.